Feeling stressed and overwhelmed in homeschool is real, guys. Today we are going to talk about the 7 mistakes to avoid feeling burned out in your homeschool journey. As we inch our way closer to the end of the homeschool year, I've actually started reflecting and thinking about what would I do if I could do this all over again. I have been homeschooling for nearly a decade, and it remains a journey every year, bringing the joys and the challenges. I'm going to reveal some of the mistakes I've made along the way. Why? Because we gotta learn from our oopsies as much as our successes. Homeschooling is a unique adventure with its own set of challenges, from balancing education to household chores to ensuring our kids are thriving socially, and even just trying to have our own personal lives. Whether you are new to the homeschooling game or a seasoned pro, let's journey through these common missteps. These tips will help you navigate homeschooling with a little more grace and a lot less stress. And stay with me to the end, because the last 2 are essential to changing your homeschool life. One of them being a major mistake I finally got right this year, and it has changed my life profoundly. Supermamas, let's get into it. Mistake number 1, copying traditional school system. It's basic human nature to fall back into what you are familiar with. I fell into this mentality when I started homeschooling. I set my house up to look like a traditional classroom, complete with the posters on the wall and name cards on each chair. I even planned lessons for the entire year, imagining this picture perfect environment right in my living room. But most of that plan flew out the window. I neglected to remember that homeschooling was about flexibility. It's about creating a learning environment that works with your family's rhythm and not forcing everyone to march at the same rhythm of a traditional school drum. Now, when I first began, I thought learning had to be at a desk with me at the front conducting everything. But guess what? My kids were like, I'm a solo artist, and they had their own style. My son, for instance, he couldn't sit still. And still doesn't. His best math lessons happened when he was bouncing a baseball off the wall. And my daughter, she loved reading upside down. Now, it sounds wild, but that's the beauty of homeschooling. We have the freedom to let our kids learn in ways that's best for them, even if it means letting go of what we thought was the right way. Yes, having some structure is beneficial. It keeps us on track and ensures we cover all the necessary ground, but it doesn't mean that our days need to mimic a traditional school. So what we have done is embraced a block schedule, which offers a bit of structure, but with more flexibility. And this approach has made all the difference, allowing us to adapt to each child's learning style while keeping my sanity intact. So if you're just starting out, or you find yourself stuck in this traditional school mindset, remember, homeschooling is about exploring and embracing what's unique for your family. It's okay to let go of the conventional classroom mindset and model and find joy in the flexibility and creativity homeschooling allows. After all, isn't that why we chose this path in the first place? Mistake number 2, being too strict. Hopefully you can follow this analogy. I love cooking and I enjoy finding new recipes. Most people just follow exactly the way a recipe goes, which is cool because your product will come out all right. Now, let's look at homeschooling lessons as following a food recipe. You can either follow the exact ingredients, or you could add a little bit of this and a little bit of that and make it fit to your liking. When you follow the recipe exactly, then that's a bit like sticking too rigidly to a homeschool curriculum or schedule. When I first started off homeschooling, I was that person with the color-coded planner, scheduling every single subject down to the minute. And I thought that this meticulous planning was essential to a successful homeschool. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Life, with all of its unpredictable, beauty, often laughed real hard in my face and my plans. And there were days when a math lesson was swapped for an impromptu painting, or science was sidelined for a trip to a beach. And initially, I thought all these deviations were like failures and I wasn't sticking to the plan. But homeschooling isn't about following a strict schedule. It's about the freedom to adapt and learn in a way that fits your family. I cannot emphasize this enough. In those early years, I was so focused on ticking those boxes that I forgot why I started homeschooling in the first place. It certainly wasn't to recreate school at home, and it was to give my kids a chance to explore their interests at their own pace and to learn without pressure and to discover the joy of learning. The turning point came when I ditched the year-long plan and embraced what I like to call reverse planning. It sounds fancy, but it really is just a fancy term for being okay with going with the flow. With reverse planning, we started to just start picking up where we left off. No stress about falling behind or pushing ahead. And this approach, yes, that was a game changer. Not just for me, but for my kids. Suddenly, learning felt more like an adventure and less of this sort of choreographed dance where we were struggling to keep up with the moves. Now, don't get me wrong. Some level of planning is necessary. We can't just go winging it every day. But if you're finding that your detailed schedule is causing you way too much anxiety, it might be time to consider loosening things up a bit and find a rhythm that works for you and your family. Maybe it's a weekly routine instead of a daily drill, or perhaps it's just setting broad learning goals rather than micromanaging every lesson. Look, y'all, the beauty of a homeschool, I cannot emphasize this enough, is in its flexibility and the personal growth that it allows for our kids to have. Embracing these little detours and unexpected lessons, sometimes the best learning happens when we're not following things to a T. Okay, I'm gonna take these glasses off, even though I'm loving my librarian vibe, but the glasses are reflecting in the camera. Let's get into mistake number 3, the comparison trap. Have you found yourself scrolling through social media at those perfect homeschool setups? You know, the ones where everything's immaculate, the kids are completely into their learning, and everything looks like the scene out of a glossy magazine, ready with Mary Poppins to pop out. I've been there too, and let me tell you, that is a slippery slope when we start comparing ourselves to someone else's highlight reel, especially those beautiful setups we see on YouTube and Instagram. Here's the thing. We have to remember that we are seeing a curated snapshot of the best moments. It doesn't show the behind the scenes chaos, the spilled paint on the floor, or the days when nothing goes as planned or your kids are just screaming, I don't want to do it. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that everybody else has it figured out and that we're over here struggling to keep our heads above water. And it's not just about the social media comparisons. Sometimes we look over the fence at traditional schools and wonder if we're doing enough. Are our kids missing out? Are they falling behind? This kind of comparison can also be really tough for millennials and Gen Xers because why? We grew up in an era of standardized tests and heavy academic competition. It's almost ingrained in us to measure success by these traditional benchmarks. Here's the heart of it. Like I spoke about at the beginning of the video, homeschooling is not about replicating school at home. It's about creating a learning environment that fits our family's needs and pace. It's about recognizing that education is not a one-size-fits-all and that success doesn't always look like a straight A report card. When I caught myself getting sucked into this comparison vortex, I had to take a step back and remember why I chose this path. It wasn't to have the prettiest classroom or to keep up with the pace of school. It was to give my kids a personalized learning experience to foster their curiosity and be present for those light bulb moments. If you find yourself feeling inadequate because your homeschool doesn't look like someone else's, or because you're not following the traditional school model, take a deep breath. Okay? Remind yourself of the wins, no matter how small. Maybe it's your child reading a book for pleasure, mastering a difficult math concept after weeks of struggle, or simply enjoying learning. These moments are the true measures of success. Let's embrace our unique journeys, messy moments and all, because at the end of the day, it's about the love and connection we share with our kids, and not about living up to someone else's standard. Mistake number 4, over scheduling. When I started homeschooling, I was so determined to fight all of these stereotypes of homeschoolers being unsocialized. So, of course, I was trying to fight tooth and nail to do everything that I can to prevent that. Soccer practice, music lessons, art lessons, science clubs, you name it, we were signed up for it. And before I knew it, our schedule was packed tighter than a subway car at rush hour. And if you're from the city, you understand that. And we were running from one activity to the next, and sometimes it was almost 6-7 days out of the week. Here's what I quickly learned. While it's crucial for our kids to engage in extracurricular activities for social and emotional development, there's a fine line between enriching their lives and overloading them. The truth is, in my eagerness to provide my kids with a well-rounded experience, I inadvertently cranked up our stress levels to the max. It was a wake-up call, realizing that our quest to do it all, we were actually missing out on the very essence of homeschooling: flexibility, enjoyment, and the freedom to learn at our own pace. Fast forward to the past 2 years, and you will find a completely different approach in our household. With having my third child, I realized then I had to scale back dramatically. At this point, we only do a couple of activities per week that truly resonate with my kids' interests. It has been a game changer, because not only have we reclaimed our sanity, but we've also just enjoyed the joy of simplicity. It's allowing us more breathing room in our weekly routine. Cutting back on activities has opened us up for space for something even more valuable: downtime. Yes, good old-fashioned free time. It's allowing my kids the luxury to just be kids, to play, to daydream, to do their own things, to recharge. And for me, oh yes, for us, it gives us the time to focus on self-care, to manage our household without feeling like we're constantly chasing after, activities. And most importantly, it's getting quality, unrushed time with my family. This shift has taught me a crucial lesson. Less can truly be more. We've got more laughter and connection and memorable moments that aren't clouded by the stress of a jam-packed schedule. So listen, Supermamas, especially those of y'all that are feeling the pressure to fill in every minute with something productive, remember, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to not do it all, because sometimes the best memories are made in the quiet moments in between. Mistake number 5, believing one size fits all. Imagine walking into a shoe store and finding only one style of shoe in one size. It sounds ridiculous, right? Yet, when I began homeschooling, I fell into the trap of thinking there was a one size fits all approach to education. And I was like on this hunt for the perfect curriculum that would magically work for all my kids and solve our educational challenges. Spoiler alert, it doesn't exist. In my quest for this holy grail of math curriculums. I went through like 3 or 4 different math programs alone, each time thinking that I found the one. But what I've learned through this whole trial and error is a lesson more valuable than any one single curriculum could offer. The importance of recognizing and adapting to each of our child's unique styles. Take my kids, for example. My daughter thrives on auditory and visual input. She loves structure and clear, concise explanations. My son, on the other hand, is all about getting his hands dirty. He's a kinesthetic learner who needs to touch and move in order to grasp new concepts. Try fitting him into a conventional sit still and listen, one size fits all mold. That is just simply uncomfortable for everyone involved. This realization pushed me to shift my perspective. Instead of searching for the perfect curriculum, I started focusing on flexibility, on becoming a sort of educational chameleon. I learned to adapt and switch gears between all the auditory, visual, kinesthetic learning type methods, depending on who I'm working with and what we're tackling that day. Now, that's a bit difficult, especially again, when you're trained in the traditional mindset. But here's the thing, this flexibility isn't about accommodating our kids' learning styles. It's also about growing ourselves, about developing the skills and patience to meet our children where they are. It's a journey that requires us to completely let go of those preconceived notions of school and embrace this beautiful, messy, and incredibly personalized process of homeschooling. It's okay if your homeschool doesn't look like everybody else's. It's okay to switch curriculums or teaching methods as you discover what works best for your family. And most importantly, it's okay to be a work in progress, both for our kids and for ourselves, because in the end, the goal isn't to mold our children into predetermined shapes, but to support them as they evolve and grow into their own unique selves. We are coming to the big ones now, y'all. Mistake number 6. Thinking that you are alone. The first thing you need to remember is you are not alone. You may be thinking, of course, I'm not alone. We have friends, we have family, but these are not the people I'm talking about. Let me explain. Starting out as a homeschooler can feel like someone just threw you in the ocean with no life vest and someone says, yeah, there's a shore, go figure out how to get to the shore alive. In the area I live in, homeschoolers were few and far between. And I remember thinking, am I the only one struggling with this? And it's a daunting feeling navigating such a significant part of your children's lives seemingly solo. Now, my friends who had traditional school kids didn't understand my struggle, but then something shifted. After COVID hit, suddenly homeschooling wasn't so niche or taboo anymore. Families that had always been in the school system started to transition to homeschooling. When kids went physically back to school, there are actually friends and neighbors that I knew for years who decided to become full-time homeschoolers. This expansion of the homeschooling community was a reminder that I wasn't alone. Far from it. There were many of us with unique challenges and experiences, but we were united by a common purpose. And it was a wake-up call to the fact that support systems are crucial, not just for our children socializing, but our well-being as homeschooling parents. As I started reaching out to those new homeschoolers, I found a wealth of knowledge and understanding. We shared resources, advice, and sometimes just having the comfort of knowing someone else gets it. These connections become a lifeline, a reminder that homeschooling doesn't mean that you're isolated, even if it sometimes feels that way. A couple of months ago, a homeschool mom who I hadn't spoken to in some months, out of the blue, she calls me and her first words over the phone, and I hope I don't come to tears, but she says, I can't do this anymore. And she didn't have to say another word because I knew right away what she was talking about. She called me because she knew I was one of the few who understood her pain and frustration. And she talked with me for a while about the challenges she was having with her kids. And at the end of the conversation, because I was trying to encourage her, I could hear this tone of reassurance and comfort because I was telling her, I was dealing with some of the same issues. And when you hear that from someone and say, look, let's hold strong, it's going to work itself out, just give it some time, that makes a world of difference. This is what we need as homeschool moms, understanding. And that understanding generally comes from other homeschool moms. Remember, it's okay to seek out help, to need connection and want a community. Finding community can also start online. There are countless forums, Facebook groups, and Instagram accounts dedicated to homeschooling and YouTube channels just like mine. And by the way, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this. But let's not stop there. You've got local co-ops, homeschooling groups, even park meetups that can be invaluable. And these communities offer not just academic resources, but emotional support, adult interaction, and the reassurance that we are in this all together. So if you're feeling isolated or wondering if you're the only one facing certain challenges, remember, you're not alone. The homeschooling community is huge, diverse, and incredibly welcoming. By reaching out and connecting with others, you're not just building a support network for yourself, you're contributing to a community that thrives on sharing, learning, and growing together. Supermamas, here is the one that has been a game changer for me, and I think I'm finally on track for getting it right. Mistake number 7 is self-care. In the whirlwind of lesson plans and grading and managing the household, there's one crucial aspect of homeschooling that often goes overlooked: taking care of you. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that every moment needs to be dedicated to your children's education or to the family's needs. Ignoring your well-being isn't just detrimental to yourself, it affects your ability to be the calm, patient, and emotionally balanced parent and educator that you strive to be. I'll be honest, I've been there and I'm still there. I feel the guilt that comes with stepping away for a moment of peace, worried that somehow I'm failing my children by taking time for myself. But what I've learned is this: self-care isn't selfish. It's essential. It's the oxygen mask principle, you remember on the airplane, that you need to secure your own mask before you're helping others. Balancing the demands of homeschooling and household responsibilities is no small feat. It's a job that requires endless energy, creativity, and patience. To show up as our best selves, we must recharge our batteries, not just for our sake, but for our families as well. Taking time for self-care doesn't have to mean extravagant spa days. The key I have found is finding an activity that replenishes your energy and brings you joy, and making it a non-negotiable part of your routine. What I do now is I have 2 days out of the week, but on those days, I do something just for myself. In my other videos, I've talked about, I now go out sailing. That is my thing, and it's an obligation. It's something that I'm tied to. It's with a group of other adults, even other adults that are not even homeschoolers. So it just energizes me in so many ways. Remember, practicing self-care sets a powerful example for our children. It teaches them the importance of taking care of their mental and physical health, and it shows them that it's okay to take breaks and prioritize well-being. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds really great, Erica, but where do I even start? Well, I got you covered. Let's continue this conversation in my next video, where I go into practical self-care tips that help bring the best out of you. And we're going to explore ways to integrate self-care into our busy lives, ensuring that we can be the positive, conscious parents that we aim to be. Because when you're at your best, you bring the best out of those around you. See you in the next video.